from wherever it is that you are. Because you see the news clippings, you read newspapers, you are on social media, you see how people are portrayed, you see how each gender is portrayed on the media, and we understand that sort of the media is the window where all of us are watching humanity from. That's where we get our news, that's where we get some of our beliefs. It's how we are portraying different people in the media. And so I'm going to rely on you to give me context from wherever it is that you are. And I hope we have a really good session. Before we start, is there anything anyone wants to say, maybe from the last session? Any comment, question that you did not have time to give last time? Okay. In that case, I think we'll just go ahead and start. So today we are going to be discussing gender transformative content. And before we start discussing, like I was saying, we need to understand why we need to do this. Why do we need to learn this? It's because the media has a really, really, really crucial role in issues of gender and gender empowerment. And so we'll start by a quote that can be found in the guideline for gender responsive media that was put out by UN Women. And it says, media are indispensable instruments of communication, learning, and socialization. And when we say indispensable, we mean we cannot do away with you at all for any purpose whatsoever. This is something that is a need. The media is the most, I think, important in talking about shaping attitudes. We rely so much on, yes, the family unit and everything, but even just on a global scale, we really rely on the media for that. So the media are an indispensable instrument of communication, learning, and socialization. The media can be used to create awareness and mobilize people for social changes. And most importantly, they can be gender responsive and promote the human rights of both men and women. So as we start this, just know, we are counting on you. Everybody is counting on you as a member of the media fraternity. You are the ones who are going to show us what we are supposed to be as a society, you know, because it is just, the media is a representative usually of what is happening in the social circle. And so if you decide to bring about the change, then we will have no option but to embrace the change, okay? And when we are talking about gender transformative content as a concept, it goes simply beyond acknowledging gender issues, because you understand there are issues with gender discrimination. We already discussed it last time, but you go further than understand just knowing, yes, there are gender issues, but what do we do about them? What are we called to do about them? So gender transformative content as a concept, it works to challenge and transform. So those are two things. The first thing you have to do is to challenge these norms that are there, whatever it is that you see right now and you seem not to agree with. So the first thing you do is to challenge them. And when you challenge, number two, you don't just challenge and be quiet, you challenge, then work to transform these harmful gender norms and stereotypes. And so there are other two, when we talk about gender transformative content, it's sort of an umbrella term, because we can be talking about gender sensitive content. That is just content that you are aware that this affects these people and this affects these people. It's just you trying to be sensitive. And there's gender inclusive, which we are going to cover all of them. So just including people. But then gender transformative is an umbrella term for you not only challenging those norms, not just being sensitive and including people, but also just working to change people's minds, to transform these harmful gender norms and stereotypes with your writing. Because as we all know, the pen is way mightier than the sword, they say. So I hope that not just at the end of this training, but moving forward, it's something that you keep in mind when you're doing your work. Whenever you're working, you just understand that, this is what is normally sort of talked about. Like, for example, last time we had the example of what was happening with the girls who were being sent out to go, sell some things to bring money to their family. And so what do you do with that story as a journalist if you're trying to be gender transformative? So you not only challenge that this thing is ongoing, you create awareness, but you also challenge the norms that people hold. And then after that, you work to transform. So gender transformative content seeks to disrupt the status quo and promote social change, because there's nothing that can happen. There's no change, there's social change that can come about without a lot of disruptions, without disrupting what is normal. So what we're trying to do is trying to break down what is understood right now, and then move on to a place where we are transforming this, not just for women, because when we're talking about issues of gender, we mostly talk about issues of women, but also for men. Because the last time when we were discussing it, we found out that this gender-based violence affects men, but nobody wants to talk about it because it's seen as, there are these stereotypes: men are this, women are this, men are strong, they cannot be, this violence cannot happen to them. So we are seeking to challenge all that in our writing. Yes. And for purposes of talking about gender transformative content, we're going to have to distinguish between sex and gender. And sex is a distinguishing variable based on biological characters between a man and a woman, such as hormones, genes, chromosomes, and reproductive organs. But then gender is something that is placed by society. It's a set of behaviors and expectations and roles and rules that we have about boys, girls, women, men. Sex is about, for example, that's the first thing we look at. When a woman gives birth, first thing we say is what? Oh, it's a boy or it's a girl. That's sex. And maybe things that are happening to your body, changes and everything, those have to do with sex. But then, when we start talking about when they're growing up, you're telling boys they cannot cry, because both boys and girls have tear ducts, they have emotions, they get angry, they get hurt. Those are things that happen biologically. But then in terms of gender, you come and place some sort of expectations and behaviors on one and tell one, you are allowed to do this, but you are not allowed to do this. So that is what now turns into gender roles. Is how you speak a bit softly to girls more than boys, and you say, boys will be boys. It's how you expect girls to do certain things and boys to do certain things. And so now those gender roles now inform our stereotypes. And it can be, these stereotypes can be included in our day-to-day lives, and then now lead into what we're doing at work. So this example, I want us to have a discussion on this. Yeah. So the first question, if you're a journalist and you're conducting an interview, and you're conducting an interview, say, to the owner of a business, a CEO or something, and she's a lady, and you ask, how did you become successful in such a big business as a woman? Or you can ask, have you ever had any gender-based challenges in your pursuit? So I want us to discuss these two questions. When you see that first question, when you hear somebody ask that first question to someone, what comes to your mind? What do you think this person is asking? Anyone?
Yeah, this is me, Angelina.
Hi, Angelina.
Hi. Yeah, in the first question, I would rather think of, when someone is asking you, how did you become successful in such a big business as a woman? This is definitely referring to, to the cultural norms and the challenges that women face. Women in most of the culture in Africa, they are termed like they are weak, and they easily give up in some opportunities that they can utilize. But women are many people think women in Africa, based on cultural norms as well, they are considered like easily to give up, and they are just mothers. They always, there is that feeling of, okay, if I cannot do it, and then why don't I just take care of maybe my family and all this, let men go out and do it. So in the first question, it is to for the journalists to know the difficulties and the challenges that women are going through while growing in a business. Thank you.
So, Angelina, before you go, would you prefer, if you were being interviewed, would you prefer being asked the first question or the second question?
For me, I would first prefer the first question, and then the other one can be a follow-up question to me.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other opinions?
Yes, I hope I'm loud and clear.
Yes, we can hear you, Gabriel.
Thank you. According to my personal perception, when someone asks you, a woman, like, how did she become successful in a big business? I believe that journalist or the person who is asking that question is already, having that mentality, that stereotype that women, are not supposed to uh, own big businesses or cannot be successful in the big business. So if she's someone whose reactions are not all that, with calmness, the first thing that she can take you to is, considering you being someone who is having that mentality of women not, being able to be part of big businesses already, you know. So that's my thought.
Yeah, it does appear as if the big business is sort of a reserve of men, and it's a question of how did you even get here? How did you even become successful at such a big business, and you are a woman? So I think what we need to do is just be quite in how we word things. We need to sort of leave our biases out by the time we're going to do interview questions, and um, sort of not put it really into the interview, because if you're going to be asking people questions, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, would I ask this same question if I was asking a man? So how about you just how did your your um, your business become successful? Question mark. You see, that is a whole entire question in itself. And from all the interviews that I've seen, there is going to be some angle of challenges that a woman is going to face that is going to be different from a man, and that is going to come out. But it does not. Your bias does not have to come out in a question. Thank you, Angeline and Gabriel. So let's talk about women in media, and just as a general view, because the first thing we are going for, if we're going to challenge any stereotypes, is look at how they are portrayed in media. And the surprising thing is that women only make up 24% of the people. This was a study done by the Global Media Monitoring Project. And they found out that stories on the media, whether in print, television, news sources that are digital, women make up only 24% of the people in newspaper, television, and radio stories. I'm not talking about people who work there. I'm talking about stories on women or stories that feature women make up only 24%. So in terms of representation, if we sort of behave as if women do not exist until it is time to write about female issues. And the interesting thing is that of this in this 24%, the stories that feature women most have to do with gender-based violence, harassment, soft stories like things to do with arts and everything. But when you're watching your TV, and I'm going to give you that challenge today when you're going to watch the news, especially the segment to do with politics and business and everything, just try and look at it and see what percentage of it covers men versus women. So this is something we're going to need to work to change. And women only make up about 20% of expert news sources, because in anything, in terms of journalism, when you're writing about a story, you will always rely on experts to discuss whatever issue is at hand. And these experts, whether in politics, agriculture, issues of conflict, issues of art, everything, women only make up about 20% of these expert news sources. And like we have said, women's voices are more likely to be heard on issues of gender-based violence and less likely on issues of governance, of law, and of leadership. And these stories are written by only 37% women. So women reporters are only responsible for 37% of stories. And this is something that I find a bit questionable, that women are more likely to be identified by something personal, the title of a wife or a mother or a daughter. So when you come into when you're talking about anyone, be it a professional, a witness, everything, you find them being referred to this mother of one, this wife of this. But then when you're talking about men, whether it be male leaders in politics, in business, and everywhere, they're never referred to by their family structure. You never hear, a CEO being referred to as a husband and a father of three. It's always something to do with their profession. He's a doctor, he's a businessman, he's a head of IT and everything. So the way we portray women on the media, and sometimes it's not even something that is direct. It's something that is very subtle. You can miss it because you're not looking out for it, but it is so ingrained. It's something that we listen to on a day-to-day basis that we might not even think is a problem. But it is a problem because it really affects how we look at women, because when we see that on the media over and over and over, then it comes into our real life. Yeah. So how do we identify gender stereotypes in reporting? I want you to look at this, the first photo. This is a newspaper from the Daily Mail in Britain. And just tell me what you think about the headline. The headline says, "Never mind Brexit, who won legs it?" And it features two very influential people. It was a meeting between the then Prime Minister of Britain, Theresa May, and the then First Minister of Scotland and the leader of the Scottish National Party, Nicola Sturgeon. So tell me what you think about this when you see it. Anyone? I'm going to need volunteers. Hi, when you look at this, what do you see? What do you think when you see this kind of news report? What does it say to you?
Can you come up again? From my understanding, you are asking what comes to our mind if we look at the
Yes, what do you think of that? What's your
okay.
personal opinion on such a headline?
Yeah, from the headline, I can see there is a pool of ropes. You know, like there is a big debate going on, and you know, between it could be between the two states. It is a political discussion from what I can see from the headline here.
No, I'm talking about specifically them concentrating on the issue of the legs, because the headline says, never mind Brexit, who won legs it?
It could be also things to do with the dressing. You know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Somebody else?
Okay.
Hello?
Yes. Who are we speaking with?
Yes. Yes, are you getting me?
Yes, Paulino Angok, we can hear you very well.
Yeah, thank you. I just joined late today, so I wish to say first, sorry for that joining me. First of all, where are we now? So I was just talking right now.
Excuse me?
Is the session started right, or we are in the started point?
Within what?
Are we started? Are we in the started point, or the session is already started?
No, the session already started. We are ongoing.
Okay. Yes, I think we can continue from there. I will follow.
Okay, no problem. Hi, my Port, please. You had an opinion on that?
Yeah, actually, thank you very much for the nice presentation. When I look at the headline, it tells me when we said, never mind pre-exit, who won like it? So on the first headline, on the first statement, it indicates that there is some gender involvement here, because when you look at the picture, there's only two women who are spearheading the idea. So it means that on that train, when the men said, when it looked like the statement that said, never mind Brexit, it means that there's some people behind that working obviously in order to embrace the statement. So it means that because on the picture, there's only two female who are taking the lead in the statement. It looks like there's a gender differences or there is gender ignorance because of the gender in the leadership system. This is what I observe on it. It looks like there's some gender part that's involved. The ignorant or that's said, because these are the two, the same gender type or gender stereotype is spreading the idea, so that the idea will not be possible from the other gender. That is what I think on the headline, and it involves also there is a gender stereotype in the political terrains or in the political arena. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mike. Paul? Paul, you have your hand up, so just unmute yourself, give us your opinion. Okay, we cannot get through to Paul, but just unmute yourself at any time. So Brexit was a really big issue where the UK was leaving the European Union. So it's a really, really, really big thing. But the thing is how women are portrayed in media, especially women in high places, female leaders, political leaders, religious, journalists, and everything. It always boils down to physical. We always look at them, it's just their physical bodies are more important, because these two are discussing like something really big, because the UK, Britain itself, England wanted to leave, and Scotland did not want to leave. So this is something of monumental. It's something that has not only national significance, but significance for the entirety of Europe. But the only thing that the reporters can see is that, these two women have legs exposed. So instead of talking about what brought them there, let's discuss the issue of their legs. I mean, who won? Who has better legs between the two? These two leaders of these two really great nations. Like, how do we? So we tend to boil issues of women down to their physical appearance and comment on the physical appearance when it has nothing to do with why they're there. Why they're there is to discuss issues that are going to affect the economies, the livelihoods, transportation, movements, and everything of people between not only the two countries, but and even the countries that surround them. But even it trickles down to us, because the kind of visa maybe I can get previously when they were in the European Union is not something I can get now. So these are things with international significance, and yet the headline just chose to concentrate on the fact that these two women are wearing skirts and they have legs exposed. So that is the kind of thing that women have to go through, portrayed, by the media. So if it was two men that were sitting there, I'm sure the headline would have read so much differently than because it is Theresa May and Nicola Sturgeon. So Rufina, I had seen your hand up. I don't know why you've put it down. I'm sorry, I was just explaining something. Just share with us the thoughts that you had. Rufina, hello, are you there?
Okay, good morning.
Good morning. Sorry, your connection is not very stable. Okay, no problem. Just let me know when you want to share the opinion when your connection gets a bit more stable.
I just want to share based on the picture. Never mind where to let's
Sorry, I can't hear you.
About the picture.
Can anybody else hear Rufina? I cannot hear her. I'm sorry. Oh, it's your network. Okay. No problem. We will get back to that. So the second photo, it also shows what some have to go through in sports. So that was in politics, but this other one depicts in sports. As you can see, the lady that is being depicted there has just won a trophy. And what is she being asked? She's being asked about her outfit, which had nothing to do with what brought her there. She came there to compete. She competed, she won. And instead of asking about, maybe what was happening on the court, how she feels about winning and everything, we run right straight to the outfit. So these are the kind of things that are all over the media. And if you're going to talk about gender transformative content, we need to move away from this issue of stereotyping women as only their appearance. We're only looking at them as how they look like, what they wear, how their hair looks like, but we're not looking at them in terms of their achievements, which is what we should be concentrating on, is their strengths, the achievements, and whatever it is, in whatever space you found them. If you found them in an art space, ask them about the art. If you find them in a fashion space, then yes, ask about some of these things. But we need to move away from the issue of, if a man is competing, we're going to ask him about the game. But if a woman is competing, we're going to ask her if she has a boyfriend, or what she's wearing, or what she thinks about somebody else's hairstyle. So these are the things we're talking about when you're talking about identifying stereotypes. These are the stereotypes that you just look and identify and see. These are the kind of things you need to avoid if you're going to move forward and produce gender transformative content. Now, when you look at these two photos, when you look at the first one, tell me what kind of story you think is being told using that photo. The first one. Remember, we said when we started the last session, there are no correct or wrong answers. We're just talking about your own opinion, what you think, and when you look at some of these images, what do they evoke in you? So I just want to get a feel of it. So when you look at something like this, what do you think? Anyone?
Yes, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Yes, when I looked at this, it actually just took me back to the first slide that you have shown us, that whenever they're talking about women or when they're reporting about women, it has to appear like on the picture, a man and the woman sitting with their family, but not like the second picture when they're considered like experts. So whenever they are referring to a woman, they have to refer to her as a mother or a daughter or somebody's wife. But the second picture, to me, it shows here maybe these girls are models or maybe there are something else. But the first one, this is what actually, whenever a woman is talked about, it shows it's only affiliated to the family, somebody's wife or somebody's daughter. So that's according to my understanding.
Okay. I have a question. What do you think of the man included and the man also carrying a
child? That shows that it's not only the responsibility of the woman to always be carrying the child. A man can also do that.
You see, just that one photo, just a photo. They say a photo is worth 1,000 words. And so when you look at that, yes, a woman is being shown in the homestead setting and everything, but just putting it shows the audience that you do not believe that this is just the work of the woman. So this is what we're talking about when you say it can transform. Because when you look at it like this, because in any case, whenever we're talking about children and anything, it's always woman carrying a child. But then when you show such things as a family being together and carrying the responsibility together, it is showing some type of message. It is bringing along some type of also, sort of change in belief. And the second one, the second photo of just the first and the second photo. So I want anybody else to tell me what they think of the first and the second. If it's a sort of a juxtaposition, they're put side by side. What do you think? What do you think this second photo, what kind of story do you think it is telling? Without even looking at whatever words or where we took it from, if you just came across that photo, what do you think it would be talking about?
Yes, hello, can I come in?
Yes, you may.
Okay, thank you very much. The second photo here is actually indicating like a group of ladies who actually work in the hotel and actually trying to narrate on their lives, how they actually working in a certain hotels or restaurants. Thank you.
But it shows you that when you look at this photo, you're like, these women are talking about work. It actually depicts the fact that they're talking about what they do. Anybody else? Yes, Carissa William.
Yes, according to me, in the second picture, it just shows gender discrimination. When you see in the picture, we don't have men around, and these women here look so, it's like they have been appointed somewhere, either discriminated at workplaces or something bad has happened at them. And then in the first picture, it shows the roles and responsibilities at the home, whereby both man and a woman should work together in taking care of children. And also household responsibility should be a joint responsibility for both a man and a woman. Thank you.
So as you can see, whenever you put something out, people are going to take different things from your stories and most especially from your photos. So it is really important to be quite careful in what you put out, because, for example, everybody has talked, when you look at the second photo, everybody thinks it's something to do with work. Yeah. So imagine if you had put out an article about a woman working, but then you put it with the first photo. And everybody is looking at it, and you know, a lot of people don't read, a lot of people don't, if something does not catch their attention, if especially whatever picture you have put does not catch their attention, they will not read past anything. And especially now in the era of digital news, where the first thing that greets us is the photo, and then we decide whether we're going to click based on what we are seeing. So you need to understand that whatever representation you put at the forefront is what is going to make people read whatever it is that you're writing. And you can write a really good article, some very nice gender transformative content. But if what you choose to accompany it, the photo you choose to accompany it, does not go with what you're talking about, then it might be a lot. Yes, Rufina. Is your internet stable now?
Are you getting me?
Yes, I'm getting you very well.
I want to say about the second picture. It is
Okay.
showing that those of a gang ladies, they're just moving around the street. They don't have anything to do.
They don't what?
Picture.
Yeah.
It is a group of. They're just moving around the street. They are not studying. They are not doing anything. But the first picture is showing that this is their age mate, and she's responsible from her family, and they are happily living with the husband.
Thank you. Angelina?
Yes, just an addition in the second picture. In the second picture, after analyzing it, there is frustration from their look. Just like mentioned by one of my colleagues earlier, it could be maybe they tried, you know, to seek for opportunities, but they're being denied because they are girls or they are ladies. So from the look, there is frustration, and they are kind of also protesting. If you look at it in another side, they are also protesting. They are like, why are we, you know, being segregated, or why are we not considered with opportunities? This is how I look at it again, the picture. And those are some perspective yeah.
Thank you, thank you. But it looks, does it look to you like they are actually doing something about it?
Yes.
Thank you. That's a really, really good take.
Thank you.
So anyway, when it comes to gender stereotypes, there's a way when we are writing stories and we have to take these things that are called stock photos and put it in your story. to match what you're talking about. Maybe you're talking about a drug that is has just come up, a study that has finished about a drug or something, and a doctor has said something. So it's something that doctors are recommending. So the photo that you put there, do you put a female doctor? Do you put a male doctor? So when you're imagining a CEO, you're imagining a doctor, you're imagining a nurse, what is the first thing that comes to mind that is really important? Because for lots of people, if you're talking about some high-flying business and you have to put a stock photo of a CEO, most people will think of a man in a suit. If you're imagining a doctor, most people would put, a male doctor. If you're talking about nursing, a lot of people will put a female person there to depict the nurse. If you're talking about roles of, picking up the children from school, if you're maybe talking about the kind of, if you're writing about the troubles that parents go through to transport their child to like a school that is far away, a lot of people will put an image of a woman going to either drop or pick up, the children. And so these are very subtle ways in which we reinforce gender stereotypes. And there's a study again by the Global Media Monitoring Project that found out that when it comes to the news, they looked over a period of about 4 years, more than 50% of the stories that were there reinforced the current gender stereotypes that people think this is what should happen. This is who should do this, this is who should do that. And less than, I think, 5% were gender transformative, that the ones that challenged and sought to transform. So those are like some very small things that you should be making into consideration. So that is about captions, but also the kind of stories that we include women in. So women are more likely to be found in some really soft stories. You're dealing with celebrities and the arts, and they're less likely to be in hard news stories, the ones that feature, politics, government, and the economy, unless they're being talked about as either victims of assault due to what is happening, but not in them being leaders. And you remember the last time, the quote that we got from Lema Bowe from Liberia, he talked about it in two parts, women being victims and being fighters, and then women being celebrated as victors and as people who, bring about change and transformation. And so I think we need to be thinking about women, yes, in the first way, because we do need to highlight the stories of whatever it is they're going through, but also just make it a habit of putting in, including women in stories of politics, of governance, of the economy. And there's a really interesting, I think, I don't know if I would call it a project or something, by the BBC, by somebody from the BBC who just started. They noticed when the report came out and everything, they noticed. So they just started giving 5 extra minutes every bulletin in terms of this politics, government, economy. The hard-hitting issues like we've seen before about Brexit and everything. If it's, talking about what women are going through in these issues, what they are doing about it, or reaching out to experts in the field who are women. And so that over the years, it adds up, and it has brought about a very good balance. So this is something you need to think about. So go back to your body of work and just look at it and sort of divide it into the themes. When you're talking about, hard-hitting stories, who do you talk about more? Who do you talk to more? Is it men? Is it women? When you're talking about issues of, soft stories and issues of like gender-based violence or things that affect women, is that where you talk about women more, or do you talk about them, or you talk with them generally in all the areas that you work with? Yeah? And, so we need to now, when we have discovered those things, when we have come about and realize, these are the problems, these are the gaps that we have to fill. So then how do we go about producing gender sensitive stories that promote gender equality? And the first thing is just cover more stories that feature women. Having only 24% of the stories be about women really limits the representation and limits the conversation on equality. Because if we are only going to be talking about women on International Women's Day, or talking about women on issues that specifically affect them, then we are leaving them out for most of the conversation, like 80% of the conversation that happens, to just the world around us, what new things we are discovering, how to govern the country, issues of economy, what is going through, what is not going through. So just in your work, aim to cover a bit more story that feature women as a whole, because representation really matters. And what you see, there's this old saying that says, if girls can see it, then they can do it. Because if you're looking at it and I don't see anybody who looks like me doing something, then I might tell myself that this is not something for me. But if we are able to show that in just a normal setting, that includes men who are discussing issues to do with the country, there are also women who are doing the same thing, then I think it will encourage, it has a snowball effect. It has the effect to encourage more and more girls and women to go out and do the same. The second thing is to refrain from using descriptions of women that include personal or status, unless it is very essential to the story. Yeah. And a good check is to ask yourself if you would include that same information about a man, because sometimes it is necessary. I'm not saying it's not always necessary, it's necessary, but sometimes we do things that are not really necessary. There was a story during the last Olympics that there's this lady who competed in the, I think, the long jump, and came second. She won a silver medal at the Olympics. And people kept referring to her as the girlfriend of a football player from the US. And the thing is, this person has gone to the Olympics on their own strength, on their own abilities, on their own everything. And so just putting them as, linked to somebody else is not really fair. So description of women that include the marital or family status that is not essential to your stories, just reduce. It's not something that you should just completely ignore, but just refrain. Just ask yourself, put it on the opposite. If it was a man, would I ask this? If the answer is yes, then ask. If the answer is no, then mostly do not ask. Yeah. The second thing is to ensure that a gender balance is respected in the choice of experts, choice of witnesses, which we have discussed. We need to strengthen gender balance stories by preparing contacts of women who are willing to speak, who are accessible. Because again, I don't know if this happens where you are, but for us, whenever it is even something like, recently we've had a lot of turmoil, people taking to the streets. And when you look at the news, it's not something that people do outwardly, but because I think it is more men who come out than women. In terms of experts, the people who are questioned on the street, there's a bit of gender imbalance. And so I think ensuring that there's a gender balance in your stories, in who you choose to interview, in who you choose to ask about issues that affect whatever you are talking about or affect the country, just ensuring there's a gender balance in the choice of experts and in the choice of witnesses. This we have already talked about. Be sure to give a woman her own title, her own name, her own voice. Don't just be referring to her as the wife of Mr. So-and-so or mother of this and this, and this who is the receptionist, and just try as much as possible to give women a voice, let them be heard. Or even if it's a first person interview, you could ask about how they prefer to be referred to in articles and everything. But if you're rewriting an article from somewhere, just concentrate on using their name and their title rather than how they're linked to somebody else. The third thing is to make sure you understand how your words will be understood by other people. So as we have just seen when we were looking at the two photos, people will infer very different things from what you write. And this mostly happens when we're trying to be, I want to say, lighthearted, and you somehow maybe try to make a joke, but this joke does not land well with other people. Let me give you an example. So this example, I took it from something like really big that happened with Burger King in the UK. And they put out a tweet just saying, women belong in the kitchen. And the stereotypes that this comes from, it's sort of a problematic statement. The meaning behind it for them was not a bad meaning. It was actually quite progressive. But the thing is your choice of words, because they later came and explained, they were talking about the fact that in professional kitchens, only 20% of chefs are women. And so women need to step up and take their space in the issue of being a professional chef. However, their choice of words did not go well with people at all. So let me just put this question out to you. Do you think that we are at a place where such a statement, women belong in the kitchen, is something that we should use, even if we are, no matter how much, how can I say, how the intent behind it, even if the intent behind it was good, do you think that this is a wise move? Is this something that you would personally write? Okay, I was just checking out the comments to see if I have a question. We do not have a question. But in the case of, again, let me just reiterate this. What do you think of some of this? If you were in this newsroom and somebody put this out, is this something you would support? I would say, knowing the intent behind it. You know the intent behind it, but not knowing how people are going to take it. Is this something that you would support being put out in your own publication? Anybody thoughts? Yes, Mai.
Yes, can I?
Yes. Who was speaking?
It was me, Julieta, speaking.
Julieta, yes. Give us your opinion.
Yeah, my opinion is, as we have already learned from the previous speakers, that whenever you publish something out, and people might take it differently. So, in such a case, I would rather explain the actual intention behind it instead of just writing women belong in the kitchen. Because other people may just take it the same way it is and believe that actually women belong in the kitchen. So whenever we are publishing such kind of thing and we really want someone to get the initial information or the initial idea, we really have to put like in the, when he came and commented that we got our initial tweet was wrong, and we are sorry. So their aim was to withdraw attention to fact that only 20% of the professional chefs in the UK are women. So they're supposed to put it like that also someone may understand, yes, this is what they are meaning. But otherwise, like this, as if they are really supporting the stereotype that yes, only women belong in the kitchen. So I don't think if it is me personally in such a case, I will not publish such kind of story or headline.
Thank you very much, Julieta. Let's hear from my thoughts.
Yeah, actually, when you look at the statement, it is completely relevant. You know, whenever you tweet, some people sometimes they take it as a joke, and sometimes as the people that just draw the attention of those who are online or on social media.
Sorry, you.
To make sure that maybe this guy is having just food, and some people will react, and then we look at it, and then another way around, people will judge it differently. When you take
Sorry, you
at the
you
contact of the cultural norm, judge it, and we'll say, oh, hello.
Yes, no, but your connection keeps going in and out. We really cannot hear you that well, but now I can hear you.
Okay, actually, where I'm using my network is a little bit on and off. Actually, the statement of this gentleman, I think he just need to withdraw the attention of the followers, because in another way around, some people just put a word on the social media or tweet it on the Twitter to draw the attention of the follower. Actually, the statement can be judged by another people, and it may take it negatively that this one is true, that women belong in the kitchen, who is opposite. There's no one is belong in the kitchen, because this one is just a social assigned task. Anyone can do it. The man can be in the kitchen, woman can be in the kitchen. So it's not the thing that's concerning giving an assignment or a task due to social assignment is not must that the women are in the kitchen or belong to the kitchen. So it is a role of everyone. Men can be in the kitchen, women can be in the kitchen, because it's not a biologically assigned task to the woman. So I think that one is just withdrawal of the attention through the media by this gentleman. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Carissa William, you have an opinion to share?
Yes, Joke, thank you. I think that statement is really is discriminating. When they say that women belong in the kitchen, it is really discriminating. The kitchen does not belong to women only. It is for both of us, men and women. And I think this Booker King was trying on how are they looking at women on the side of a kitchen. Are they only the people who are always supposed to be in the kitchen cooking for the family? Yeah, that is according to.
Okay, thank you. So this just shows, yes, Rufina.
Yes, once again, good morning.
Good morning. Yes, I'm getting you. You're kind of low, but I can get you.
Yeah, this course actually, it is the prototype reminding women that they are just marginalized people in the country. It is simply acknowledging gender issues. Are you getting me?
You're kind of low.
I'm like this course women belong in the kitchen. It is
Okay.
very discriminating and simply acknowledging gender issues. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Angelina, you have something to say?
Yes, just in addition to this headline, it is a complete stereotype, you know, and discriminating headline, especially when you look at the context of my country and especially from where I come from. This the title itself, you know, the headline itself is being still up to now being considered into being put into practical by the society, in which whenever a female is growing, you know, like in a business or in anything, like let's say in humanitarian context, when someone is growing and they say, ah, this particular woman is like this, they believe she couldn't have that strength to do it apart from having, you know, some other connections that could also involve like sexual gender harassments and all this, because they believe women can only, you know, remain women, producing children, cooking at home. This title itself, you know, it can victimize a lot of people from my community, which is it is a complete bias, and it does not promote equity and equality. And I think even the editor of that particular Burger King newsletter was not serious, you know, to accept it being published in that, I mean, in their newsletter.
I fully agree. So from this, I can tell you this tweet was used by some people to, because you see, when you put out something like this and it does not have an explanation below, not everybody who read that first one is going to come and read this second explanation. Yes. And this is still being used by people who want to continue to trample down on women. It's still being used as a tool to continue the oppression and to continue, you know, bringing out these stereotypes. So this just shows you need to be very careful what you put out, because, you know, if you have a lot of people who are looking to you to provide the news or following you for any reason online or with whatever type of media you're doing, you need to be very careful about your words, because for them, they thought this was going to be something funny. They put it out as some sort of, you know, a joke, or, you know, we support women and women belong there. But this is not how people are going to take it. You need to look at, because communication happens when you say something and then the other person receives it. So you need to be very careful about how is what I am saying, what I am writing, how is it going to be received? And for this one, it's especially egregious because of the historical connotations of women being told they belong in the kitchen. It's quite a sensitive subject. So whenever you're writing about issues to do with, you know, gender, you need to be very careful in your choice of words, because the words that you choose to put out could have a really, really, really big effect on either what you're trying to discuss, or just have the opposite effect. If your effect was trying to further the conversation, then it just brings it back. It has the complete negative effect. Lokori Peter, you say the statement "women belong in the kitchen" is indeed sentiment that does not promote equality and empowerment of women. We fully agree with you. So even if you meant it and meant it as another way, please do not write things like this, which may be taken, actually will be taken by most people to mean something negative. Thank you very much for that, guys. And something else. We've already talked about the use of descriptions that pander to societal expectations, that limiting to women, like, you know, talking about them in terms of their marital status, of do they have children and everything. But this second one, I think, is quite important. So descriptions such as male, when you're talking about professions, you know, this person is a male nurse. That person is just a nurse who happens to be male. So I don't think their gender plays into anything. Yeah. So when you're talking about a doctor, it's just a doctor. The fact that she's a female doctor does not really change anything, unless you're doing a story about maybe the fact that there's very few female doctors, or there's, she's maybe the first person to head a department or something. If it has nothing to do with that, then just refer to them as a doctor, because what we're trying to do is to normalize these things in society. So when you say such things, the female driver, a driver is a driver. It's a vehicle is driven the same way by, everybody else. You do not have to point out the gender of the person if it's not necessary to the story. So these things are inherently sexist, and they suggest that it is not normal for that person to be in that particular place that you're talking about, And it's the same thing going down even as, teachers who teach the very lower classes, pre-primary, nursery, kindergarten. If it's somebody who's a man, we have to mention, it's a male teacher. Because we have put stereotypically, we have put these professions are supposed to just be for this particular gender, and this profession is reserved for this gender. So whenever you're writing your stories, you're referring to people, just avoid descriptions that play into the stereotyping of women and men that happen in society. So a nurse is just a nurse, a doctor is just a doctor, a manager, a CEO is just a CEO. The gender has nothing to do with what brought them particularly there. So just be careful when you're writing about these things, because we're talking about like really, really subtle ways. They're not very direct, because this thing is not directly sexist. It's not coming to say, we're not coming to say men should not be nurses. You could just be writing about a story that has to do with, the caring profession, and you're very much in support of nursing and what men are doing. But the minute you just start putting those qualifiers before the word, when we are learning English, you're learning about, qualifying nouns. So you qualify the nurse by being male, but you don't say female nurse. Why? Because you expect nurses to be female. You have that bias for you where nurses are supposed to be female. So when you say nurse, you do not put female before it, because it's supposed to be something we automatically assume. If you say doctor, we are supposed to assume it's a man. But if you meet a female one, you have to qualify it by saying, oh, no, this one is actually a female doctor. So in your descriptions, just put whatever it is that is necessary as we move forward towards gender transformative content. Something else is making such unfair comparisons of men and women based on, at the beginning we talked about sex being different from gender. And so making unfair comparisons of men and women based on natural, physical, and biological capabilities will not move the agenda forward. So when we talk about gender equality, it does not mean that we say women and men have to become the same. What we're saying is that their rights, their responsibilities, and their opportunities do not have to depend on whether they are born male or female. And discriminating on one or the other, talking about, this ones are able to do this, and this other gender are not able to do that. That's sometimes it's a very unfair comparisons of men and women. So what we should be comparing is just specifically these gender roles that have been put on society that have nothing to do with your physical abilities as either a man or a woman. And also in that same breath, we avoid stereotypes and assumptions, and especially about the experiences of women. We tend to have some very many assumptions that are just led by stereotypes, like we had in the very early slides when we were asking the woman about hey, how come you have this big business and you're a woman? See, you've already made an assumption based on the stereotype that women are not supposed to have such big businesses. This is the result of men. And when you avoid those stereotypes and assumptions and just go in, we talked about this last time, you know, when you're writing about such stories of maybe gender discrimination, gender equality, or GBV, you always need to recognize your own biases. And when you recognize your own biases, you're able to work with them. You're able to sort of keep an open mind to just come and write stories that are very impartial, that are very, in as much as are impartial, are also challenging the biases that you yourself may hold and may be held by society, and then now move on to writing the gender transformative content that you want. So before we move on to that, are there any questions about the issue of this content? Do you have any comments or just any question about any issue of this content that we have to write to make it gender transformative? Any questions? Any?
Yes, may I just come in, please?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I only have a comment just based on the experience when the governor of Western Baragazal was appointed and she was a female. You know, in English, I think it's good. It's not difficult. A governor is just a governor, regardless whether she's a female or a male. But now the problem was in Arabic, and by that time, you know, the governor was in Arabic. A governor is like always referred to as a man. So now it was a bit difficult to be calling, you know, the governor in Arabic, and the name was referred to a man while she was a female. And you know, it was a bit confusing. And then in Arabic, then we had to be like calling her a female governor in Arabic, like that people will be able to know that this is a female, not a male. And sometimes for some people who didn't know that Western Bahr al Ghazal governor was a female, when she's coming in and then she said, Governor Mr. Sarah Kileto has arrived, then they were like, no, they said governor, and she's a female. How come? So you know, it's that by that time it's a bit challenging, and I've come to realize sometimes even the languages that we are using is a gender discriminative languages, or it's a gender stereotype. So, but at least I think up to now it's fine. And so whenever they call the governor, people have already known that yeah, she's a female, and she's just called with that name because she's a female, and there's no way to change because actually they think the position was meant only for a man. Yeah.
I agree with you, especially on the issues of language. So I come from the Kikuyu tribe, and I was having this discussion with my mom last week because the church elder, where she's from, the church elder is a woman. And in our tribe, in our language, the elders are, the name for a church elder is the name for a man, is actually the word for man. What we call man is the same word we use for, that is used for church elder. But it's because when churches were being formed back then, nobody had ever thought that there would be a female, you know, church elder. So the question is, do they change the name of what they have been calling elders for 100 years? Or do they introduce something else? It's so the women, the church elders are also just referred to as men, you know. It's quite unfair in some languages that we never really made the provision for women to be in certain positions. So yeah, that actually does present a problem. Thank you for that. Any other comment or question? Okay, so there's something that was not really in the space of gender transformative content, but I thought it's nice to just take a few minutes to talk about it, because I have been conducting some research along this line, and I think it's something that is being seen at a global level. And again, I am going to look to you to give me some sort of context in your own community. But it is the issue of female journalists and online harassment. It's something that has been an ongoing concern. It was a really big thing in Kenya. So when I started doing my research on it, I realized it's an actual global problem. And especially on social media, female journalists are victims of serious attacks, and they're targeted as women and as journalists. And a really, really big majority of female media professionals, they report being bullied online. They face insults, verbal abuse, substantial criticism, threats against their friends, their families, for themselves. And this harassment, it ranges from insults, hate speech, to death threats. And that's our area of expertise. We talk about how hate speech affects the community, and the link between hate speech and it being translated to actual violence. And so this thing is seen in the frequency of comments, just insulting them, threatening them, threats that come in that are of a very sexual nature. When you see women hosting programs on TV, people making comments about their appearance and making very disparaging comments about the violence that they would like to met upon, the female journalists. So I thought I would take this opportunity to just ask, is this something that you have seen in your experience? Is this something that female journalists in South Sudan, wherever you may be, experience or struggle with? On the issues of online harassment. And it's actually in two ways. It's in the newsroom itself, where there's somebody who was talking and mentioned that thing of if people see you have advanced, even as a journalist, they have to look and say, is it because of your own merit, or is it because somebody else who you have maybe offered sexual favors is making you make those kind of moves? And also the audience, how the audience sort of receives your writing, receives your presentations, anything that you may have. I just want to get sort of a feel of how it is for female journalists where you are in your own community, where you are. Have you ever experienced this, or even as a man, have you seen this happen to female journalists and online harassment? Yes, Angelina.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Actually, this is happening, and that's why when we talk about gender stereotyping in journalism, it's majority of the people, they think it's only focusing on female. Yes, at some point, this topic is more related into, it is more of advocating for women and for the world to understand that women and male, women and men, they are, they are obliged to do the same duties as long as they have the ability to do it. In this case, women, for sure, female journalists are being, they face a lot of online, discriminations and harassment. Let's take an example of a certain lady. She's a photographer. She's really committed, and she used to take photos even in, like during the flood in South Sudan. She's a good photographer, but after taking, after doing her duty, there are a lot of comments coming up. Others, yes, are appreciating, but others are like, oh, maybe she's just using it for her to, to be promoted in the other way or other. Not forgetting that this is a profession, you see, and she's doing it ethically. So female journalists, for sure, even if it is not often, even when you are assigned to go and do an interview, to conduct an interview, for example, in most big offices, in most big conference halls and all this, female journalists are rarely, okay, even if they are given that chance, but sometimes I feel like it's a cover up. There is a way I feel, and it almost drove me from being really an active journalist to just maybe focus on working for humanitarian, more of human right and all this. Because female journalists, especially in my country, when you are assigned, it is really difficult. It's like they have that belief that they can't do it, or maybe they look at you physically, maybe you are short, slim, and all this. There is such categories, and these are really negative when it comes to, being a female journalist. And when you are going through a lot of all this, these are kind of different harassments, and that won't really make you grow in your career. To me particularly, yes, I went through some, challenges, such relevant challenges. But sometimes in journalism, you work to overcome things, and that is why you are there, the voice of the voiceless. So, and I believe this is why we are having also these sessions and the training itself, to be able to inform ourselves on how we can be able to report such issues, and for the community to understand whether they have been doing it, that it is not the right thing to do it. So it is another way of advocating and getting more information and knowledge on how we can also, overcome and address such problems that are facing female journalists in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very valid points. Anyone else? Just get us a feel of
Yeah.
this happening.
May I just add something small to what
Yes.
Angelina said?
Yes, you may.
Yeah, okay, I actually had an experience. And then when I was still working for the radio, one of the Catholic radio networks in WOW here, and yes, we are a community-based radio, but sometimes there are some of these political discussions that we can have on the radio. And then when it comes to that, whether a minister or anyone from a government is coming for discussion, and then they were like, okay, let's have a male presenter, because they can do that one well, they have the information and what. And most of the times the females are just reserved for maybe doing open discussion, sales program. Then I was like, all of us are here and all of us are journalists. And if you really wanted to offer me support, or you have seen that I have a gap somewhere, just tell me, do this, do that. Just give me the instruction. And then later on, when I go in air, I will know what I can do. So, I've come to realize that when there are like hot political discussions, the female presenters are always kept away. Even if sometimes it's on their duty, they are sometimes changed with the other men. Then I was like, now this one cannot come. All of us here are journalists, and all of us are presenters, and all of us have that capacity. So we can actually do that. That's in the part of program. When it comes to news writing or doing coverage, sometimes when there are delegations, or maybe there is someone big from the security is coming, people need to go to the security office and do the coverage. They always prefer sending mail, because going to the security, it's a bit difficult and what you females. I said, no, going to the security is not something actually bad, but it is you who think of that maybe it is not good for us. Have you maybe asked us or sent us there to do the coverage and we have failed to do it? So I was like, anytime, if you feel like you wanted to support us, send two of us, send a male reporter and a female reporter, and then later on see what will happen. So these are all of the things, when it comes to reporting, when it comes to media coverage, they think female, they cannot go and do coverage for issues that deal with the security, for issues that deal with, political coverage. Like when people are covering the meeting for Council of Ministers, it happened that a day I went and I was waiting. Then they were like, hey, we are waiting for the reporter that is supposed to come from Voice of Hope Radio. Is he not yet here? I said, then I was like, I'm here, I'm presenting Voice of Hope. Is Voice of Hope presented only by mail or what? So, these are all of the things that sometimes people go through. Until I was like, you people give me the chance. Me, I want always to be the one going and do the coverage at the Council of Ministers. Like that, they know that it's not only male reporters who come and do the coverage, female also can do that. So until by that time, they have changed their mind and they have also come to understood that yes, female can also do things that deal with the security, that deal with the politics and all of that. And sometimes most of the cases, we here in WOW, we are much of Arab culture. And sometimes a female dressing in a trouser and what, they look at you as if, you are not from that community. And by that time also, I used to shave my hair. So whenever I come, like, this Wewe is coming here to do what? I was like, Yama, if I shave my hair, am I a Wewe or it doesn't mean that I'm a foreigner? So they're like, that this is not how a journalist is supposed to be. Then I was like, how does like a female journalist is supposed to look like? Shall I put in a long jalabias like that, that? So until we had to speak to our director, and then he was like, these people, they put intruders because they're journalists, it is for their safety, it is for what, and they also have the freedom to put in what they want. So these are all of the kind of things that we normally go through, but with time we have overcome that, and it still needs a lot of work and it needs a lot of awareness actually. So this is what I have really wanted to share, and this is what I've actually gone through many times, but it's only that I really love what I do and I never mind about it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope we'll all listen to that. I'll comment on that later. Angelina, sorry.
It's okay. It's the same.
No. The one thing about what I about mispronouncing people's name, when you go up there, especially with an African name, and people call you, like for me, our main office is in Germany, and people call me all sorts of things, and I just keep thinking, just pronounce my name correctly. This is one thing. So Angelina, yes, you're right.
Okay, thank you. This is really a very interesting, topic, and it has really touched because we went through a lot of things. Just in addition to what my colleagues say, during the crisis of 2013 in South Sudan.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I was, before that, I was actually put in a radio station. I was representing some program that a program was called Let's Talk Peace program and a Women Issues program. So it reached a point, when I'm in the studio with my voice and everything, other people outside, they assume that I'm very tall, and huge and all this. And because I was really, excavating a lot of issues that is affecting a lot of young girls, a lot of females in the area and all this, and how it should be anticipated. So they were like, this lady, where is she coming from? Maybe she's just learning the local language. She, a lot of so many things that they were really having this perception about me. So it reached a point in 2014, after the conflict, I was taken to cover a news that was a peace symposium in Addis. And then I happened to put one of my colleagues to be taken through the program before my return. And that was a gentleman. So with that, after I came, they were like, at least you are back now. That man has been talking a lot of things concerning women, and he's a man. I'm like, yes, he's doing his job. Any program that is talking about women, sensitizing things that women are going through and how they should be treated in the society is not only for female journalists. He's a journalist, and he's actually, the fact that he's also a male journalist, some women will also feel free to to talk to a man, so that they will also feel how women are going through and how they should be treated in the community. In the other side, I think they are overlooking female journalists as well, because they may be, there is that ego, like when I dress in a suit and I am a gentleman, we can talk man. Side things, they really happen. But forgetting, even in investigative journalism, if you happen to use a female journalist, there are some tricks that she can also use to find out the exact information that cannot easily be spoken out, because women have this a sense of, politeness at some point. There is a lot of, comforting signs that the woman can use to get the information that she wants. So that this is actually just a brief addition to all this. We are facing a lot of things, but with this program, I believe it is going to foster the information, the knowledge we have, and the courage to continue being journalists and support our community with the right information. And thank you.
I agree. Thank you very much, Angelina. So, Luchapio Elizabeth. Hi.
Okay, thank you so much. Hi, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I'm just going to add something small on what my fellow colleagues have already said. It's really true. Women in journalism are facing a lot of challenges. For instance, where I'm working from, it was a female who was leading us. So you find that sometimes their male colleagues would not respect the leadership because maybe she's a woman, and sometimes they could just utter whatever they feel like to this lady because she's a woman. So sometimes I just have to come in, we should respect one another. Even if you're a man or a woman, regardless of the position of that person, you have to respect that person in whatever position that she has. And then also in journalism, sometimes we, the female, we face a lot of problems and challenges, especially when we go for coverage, as someone had said earlier on. There was a scenario whereby, because for me personally, I like going for stories that people feel like it is tough sometimes, talking to the top leaders in the state and so on. So sometimes I go for such stories. It happened one day, some of the top leaders were coming from Juba. They were SPLM-IO. And then someone called the Minister of Information. They called that they need one person to go and do the coverage. So I went and I volunteered that I'm going to the airstrip. So when I reached there, the national security came and surrounded me, but I was having my equipment, everything, the ID and so on. So they told me that you're not supposed to be here. You are supposed to wait until when these people arrive. Then I said, but why? But I'm also waiting for them so that at least I see how the reception is and so on, so that I can do my stories. So they were like, no, you are not supposed to be here. I said, why? That not, they just told us that we don't want any reporter here. So I told them, who gave you the instruction? Was it the governor or the Minister of Information? Then they said the governor. I said, okay, no problem. Let me call the governor. I have no problem with that. And they said, no, it's okay. Don't call the governor. So what I did, I had to stay there. They sent a different group again to come and approach me, but still I refused to go from the airstrip. People were very many, since the guy who was coming was the deputy governor, and people from the government, they could refer to those people as rebels. So they did not feel like people should come to the airstrip and welcome these people. They felt bad. So to the extent that their plane was delayed from Juba. They were supposed to arrive here by midday, but they delayed until 5. That's when they arrived. So when they came, there were a lot of chaos again at the airstrip there. The government officials or the security personnel did not want these delegates to meet with their colleagues at the ground here. So it brought a lot of tension. So I was taking pictures and so on. So immediately, I told the driver, let's go. We went up to the secretariat. I was the first person to reach at the venue where these people will converge or have a discussion. Then immediately the other delegates came in and they closed the door. So my recorder was already on, and things were set up. So people started a discussion. Immediately I was taking my notes and so on. But unfortunately, when some of these delegates were introducing themselves, they were not giving titles, and most of them I didn't know them. So what I did, I just wrote their names and I did not have titles. So when I came out from there the following day, it was late in the evening, I called the Minister of Information. I told him that I need the correct titles of these people and the names maybe from the attendance list that was given to the delegates who came. Then he was trying to dodge me. I called the secretary for the governor. He also refused to give me the information. So what I did immediately, I went to a hotel where these people were sleeping, where the visitors were sleeping. I went with one of my colleagues who is a male, and that one is also from another tribe, but one of their tribe mate is also part of the delegate who came from Juba. So what I did, the national security still came to me and they were like, but what do you want every day from here? Then I said, I want the information. What's the problem with it? Is it a problem for me to get the information? Because the public needs to know. Then they say, no. But what I did, I told this colleague of mine, what you do, go to the other guy, you get the information, the titles of these people and the names, then we just come and we go. So I will just be around with these ones. I will waste their time here. So that one got the information. After that, he just signaled me that we are done. Then we just came. So sometimes we need to use tricks here. So being a female journalist, we should not be intimidated because we can do what other people or what men can also do. So that's what I just wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I agree with all the sentiments, and especially the part of we have been discussing about women not being included in the issues of talking about hard-hitting stories to do with politics, stories to do with governance, stories to do with issues of conflict, and you're relegated to talking about issues of beauty. And so this, I feel like, is a call to all of us. And the one thing we have to understand is that women issues can never be solved without men. And so all the men that are here, I hope you have been listening. You know these things that are happening. They're happening in their own newsrooms and everywhere. We did that exercise last time where we did the inequality triangle. And you're like, the first thing you have to do is scan the room. So wherever it is that you are, do you scan your rooms? Whether it's in the kind of news coverages that you're given, when you're in the boardroom and the stories are being distributed, do you scan the room and see, are women being equally represented, where I am? And so the awareness is what we start. And the fact that, we have had the different ladies here telling us of their own personal experiences. And those experiences are not just being faced by them, it's being faced by female journalists where they are, in other communities, even where we are. And globally, it's a problem. So how do we start with that? We start by scanning the room, and we start by raising awareness. Thank you very much for that. And as usual, for me, I never end without calling people to action, because we can sit here, we can discuss, the whole everything, but what do we do about it? And so the first quote we have is from the writer Elizabeth Banks, and she says, "It is important to present role models for young women coming up. I really do believe you cannot be what you can't see." So for example, if there's a young girl telling herself she wants to be a journalist, but then she never sees a female journalist interviewing the prime minister or the president or covering those stories, she cannot be what she does not see. I mean, there are of course people who are going to break the mold, but the representation really matters. And if she sees somebody who looks like her doing some things and it will spur her to action. So we really, really need to press on the issue of representation. So the idea of putting women in media in ways that present them as having power, being heard, being true to themselves, and done from the perspective of women is something that is going to move gender transformative content along a very long way. And the second one is from Lennox. And this time I wanted to get also the perspective of a man. And he says, presentation is not and it cannot be neutral. We cannot sit and say, this is something that we don't feel any ways about, or this is a subject that is just for women. Representation is not and it can never be neutral. It is an act and the founding act of power in our culture. We need to carry everybody along. We need to make sure that these opportunities are being offered to everyone, every one of us. And so as we close, I just like really looking at this picture of Maura Ajak. I just put it there because I like looking at it. And I had somebody say about female journalists covering floods, and I wondered if it was Maura, but I just put that photo there because I really like it, and it makes me happy to look at it.
It was exactly the same picture I was talking about.
Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, that brings me to the end of our presentation today. So I will take any comments, any questions you might have, anything you'd like to share with the team before we log off. We just look at some of the comments here. Lokori Peter, you're saying you totally agree with Juletta, and it is indeed mindsets or mental sentiments that exist in our community today. I fully agree, and that is why we together, everybody here, have agreed the two things we are going to do is number one, to challenge, and number two, to transform, which is what we are heading towards, transforming the mindsets, transforming the mental sentiments and everything. Let me see if you have else. So Maboria to say, Angelina has spoken real issues facing female journalists in South Sudan. I fully agree. Those people raised were very real issues, and it's direct. This is what we call first person experience. And we've heard from all three ladies who have had experiences in this, and they're talking on behalf of everybody else who is facing these issues. So again, we have said, we scan the room, we action, and we solution. Okay, anything else before we log off? Any question, any comment, anything somebody wants to say? Okay, we will